I bought these 9 broken Game Boy Pokemon games just to see if I could fix them. Pokemon Blue is worth about $40 used, but the Pokemon Crystal version is worth about $110 used, so they're definitely worth trying to fix. Let's get them into a Game Boy and see what's wrong. This video is sponsored by iFixit. Okay, in Pokemon Blue, the Nintendo logo has, I don't know, it's kind of glitching out, so that's all it's doing. It doesn't go any further than that. So let's get this one opened up and see if we can figure out what's wrong. One of the great things about the iFixit Protect Toolkit is it's got all sorts of specialty bits inside, including the bit I need to get this screw out. A lot of electronics manufacturers these days use specialized fasteners, and sometimes it's hard to find the bits you need to get those out. So it's one thing I love about iFixit is they always have basically anything you need to get into pretty much anything. So let's get this apart. You just need to slide down. And here we go. Now I think I've only opened up maybe 1 or 2 Game Boy games. And so I don't really know exactly what I'm looking for here. I was inspired to make this video because of a video that I saw by TronicsFix. I think that's how you say the name. I'll put a link in the description so you can check out his video, but he made a video similar to this and he found that one of the legs on this chip right here was consistently unsoldered, or the solder had broken free. So we'll be checking that out. It looks like maybe someone has replaced this battery before. I'm not sure if this is how much solder is normally on here, but I feel like that's quite a bit of solder, and it looks like maybe they got their iron up here and kind of got some heat on this right here. That doesn't do any damage or anything. It just looks like somebody may have been in here before. So I think probably the best thing to do, since I don't see any obvious damage right away, although it looks like maybe there could be some damage down here. Yeah, I think there might be some damage down here. So this line is from where the case rubs against these circuit traces right here. Let's get under the microscope and see what these look like under the microscope. I'm also going to do some cleaning on the pins. These pins don't look too bad, so that's probably not what it is, but this line right here definitely worries me. First, I'm going to come through and check each of these pins. Oops. Okay, the soldering on all these pins actually looks fine. So the next thing I was worried about is this line right here. That could be a problem right there. These traces are also worn down right here. I don't think they're worn all the way through, but that definitely could be a problem. So let's get all of this cleaned off, and then we'll have a look at these traces. So these are the 2 biggest areas where the solder mask is worn down to the circuit trace. But even these, I don't think it's worn down so much that it creates a break right here. So I don't think this is even a problem. Yeah, because this is just one continuous trace here. Yeah, so we can see that these, while they are worn down to the copper, they're not worn through it. So I don't think that's the issue. So let's actually get this thing all the way out and check the other side and see if there's been any damage to the other side of the game. What do we have right here? That looks a little suspect. Okay, so this is definitely a problem. I don't know if it's the only problem. So we've got the copper from where this circuit goes through the board. And it looks like it is not connected to this trace right here. So the plan here is going to be to connect a wire from this part of the trace to this copper right here, and that should repair this circuit so then it'll work correctly. I need to make sure and get as much of the wire connected around here as possible to make sure that joint is nice and strong, and then we'll come in and put some solder mask over it to protect the joint. And that looks to be about the perfect amount of solder mask, so now let's get this game put back together and see if it works. Now before we do that, I do want to check this battery and make sure it's good. 3 volts on a 3-volt battery. This battery When it's fully charged, it's more like 3.3, but that should be plenty good enough, and that should work for a long time even at 3 volts. Now before we get that back together, I did notice this case is pretty dirty inside. It's even got a little bit of, I don't know, it looks like corrosion inside, but it could be just gunk buildup. So let's give the case a good cleaning, and then we'll snap it back together and put that screw on. Okay, and it's fully back together. Let's give it a try. Oh no, same thing. Okay, so I was kind of worried about this. I think I know what the issue might be, and it's going to be a little more in depth than what we just did. So this is the part we just fixed, and that part is located underneath this chip. So what I'm worried about is I'm worried that underneath that chip there's some sort of liquid damage, and that's probably causing problems. Most likely right under the chip right here. So I'm gonna need to remove this chip, then we can inspect under here and see what kind of damage we have. And just as we suspected, we've got some more corrosion on this side. So it looks like actually pretty similar to how the other side looked. And we just got a little break in the circuit between this line right here and the actual via that goes through the board. Now we know that we have it connected on the other side, so we should be able to just do a similar repair here, and hopefully that'll get this one working for us. I do want to clean all this corrosion up first, because if I don't get it out now, then it can kind of like just keep corroding over time. So we've gotten it clean enough that we can see the solder from the other side. So what I'm going to do next is fill this up with more solder and then connect a jumper wire from here to here, and that should restore this connection. Just to be sure though, this time we will test it and make sure that the connection is fully restored before we put it back together. And now I just need to put some solder mask on this, then we'll get it put back together and see if it works. So this right here is the circuit we're working on. If we follow it up, it goes to right here with some bare copper. So I'm going to put one of my probes here and the other probe on the part that connects to the game, the pad that connects to the game. And that will tell us if we have continuity from here, through the hole, through our other patch job, and down onto the pad. So we have one probe here. I've got to keep pressure on that while I find the other one. Okay. If we put it right on the wire, all right, that's good. If we go down to the pad, there we go. So we have continuity through both of the repairs that we just made. So theoretically, that part should be fixed. Now, there could be another problem on this board somewhere, but that's the only problem I see. Let's get this put back together and see if that'll fix it. And I guess I should probably put this chip back on. I've got the solder mask installed over our repair job there. So now I'm going to use my hot air soldering station, heat up all this solder, make sure it melts good to these joints right here, and then we'll be able to test it. Okay, game in, Game Boy on. Oh, there we go, that's what I'm talking about. Look at this. That is a beautiful thing. And there we go, we have our first Pokemon game fixed. Let's move on to one of the Pokemon Yellow games. Okay, and this one showed a normal startup screen at first, and now just nothing. All right, let's open it up and see what we got going on. Oh yeah, look at all this. So I'm guessing this is gonna be our main issue. Probably more over here. It looks the worst. So let's get all this cleaned off and then see how many of these traces are bad. So after looking at all of these, I actually don't see any of them that have traces that are broken. They're definitely not in great shape, and some of them are even a little bit corroded, which I mostly cleaned off. But I don't see any that actually have the trace that's actually broken. It looks like everything is still connected there. So let's go up and check this chip right here. Check the legs on this thing. See if we can find any that are loose. Oh, here we go. Okay, so let's get that resoldered. And then I actually want to test it right after that and just see if that's the only issue here. I am going to come through and put solder mask on all of this just to make sure this has an extra layer, so any rubbing it does against the game cartridge will be protected. I'll do that part off camera though, since you've already seen how that all works. So I've got the solder mask applied to these circuit traces right down here. The problem seems to be that they rub against this bottom bar, especially once they get a little bit of that corrosion built up. Then they rub a lot against this. So I've taken my razor knife, my X-Acto knife, and just kind of scraped against this to remove some of that plastic there. And hopefully that'll make it so it doesn't actually rub quite so much against those circuit traces right there. Okay, and with that all done, we can finally get this thing put back together. Again, the only repair I've made is just soldering that one pin. So let's see if that's the only problem with this game. Okay, here we go. Good so far. Yeah! And there we go. So now I got the second Pokemon game all fixed up. Let's move on to the third one and see if we can fix that one. So far, we're 2 out of 2. The next one is another yellow one, and this one, the game itself is broken right here. I don't know if that's the only issue with this one, but let's turn it on and see if it works. Okay, this one's all good so far. Okay, so this one seems to be working so far. I'm going to set this one aside. I'll test it a little bit off camera and see if I find any issues a little bit longer term. But for now, I'm going to assume that the main problem with this one is just that these edges are broken. So this one at some point will need a new case. If one of these other two Pokemon Yellows we can't fix, then we can just swap that case onto this one, and this one will be all fixed and ready to go. But for now, let's move on to the next Pokemon Yellow game. And here we go with our third Pokemon Yellow game. Okay, and the Nintendo logo is all messed up. So let's get this thing apart, see what it looks like on the inside. So first thing I'm gonna do is check this number 1 leg on this chip and see if it's the same issue on this game. Oh, I do see maybe a little corrosion over here, actually. Right down here. Let's get it on a microscope and I'll show you a little closer. So right here we have that spot of corrosion. And it doesn't look quite as bad, although that could have created a short there, possibly. I don't know for sure that that was even corrosion, but it's kind of what it looked like. I don't see any other evidence of any sort of liquid damage on this board, so I don't know if that was a problem or not. Looking at the solder joints on this chip, oh, we got a loose, that one's definitely loose. Okay, that can cause a problem. Let's check all the others. We got this leg is loose and this leg is loose. Let's check this other chip, see how this one's doing. Oh, 1 there, 2, 3. Oh, that one does. Okay, so this chip, I'm just gonna go through and just resolder all of these pins right here. Since there's so many that are loose, likely others are going to loosen up over time, so let's just make sure we do the job right and resolder all of them. And now I'm going to come through with my soldering iron and make sure there's some fresh solder on it, and then just touch each of these pins, and that will ensure that we have a good connection. And now with each and every one of these pins resoldered, let's clean this up, then we'll get it put back into the game cartridge and give it a test. Okay, and did we fix it? Good so far. And yes, we did fix it. So this one's all fixed up. We've got one more Pokemon Yellow, and then we can move on to the Pokemon Silver. These Pokemon Yellows are worth about $45, and the Pokemon Silver is worth about the same. Okay, we get a good Nintendo logo. Oh, this one's actually starting up. Oh. We just got a black block instead of the image that's supposed to be there. Okay, let's open this one up and see if we can figure it out. So right away on this one, I can see that somebody has gone to great lengths to try and fix this. These joints have all been resoldered on this chip and on this chip. as well as this chip, and even this tiny chip right here. They even resoldered this one. And of course they did replace the battery as well. So we've got our work cut out for us here. Let's see if we can figure out what's going on. And right away I can see some potential problems. Right here we've got some corrosion. Also have some right here and right here and right here. I think what I'm going to do is remove this chip just because so many of these little vias under here look like they might not be connected, like they may be too corroded. So if we remove that chip, then we can get in there and test them easier and see if there's a problem there. So let's get that off so we can test all of these little vias. So this via definitely looks suspect. You can see the copper down there, so I'm not even sure it's making any sort of a connection with this part of the circuit trace right here. In fact, it looks like this is just all eaten away. Also, I was looking at the game cartridge case, and this is what I found. So this one definitely had a good amount of liquid damage at some point. So that's why all of these make sense, that there's so much damage on these little vias here. Now I'm going to start by filling this hole with solder, and then we can flip it over and use that solder to connect our trace wire to. And now with that trace all fixed up, let's give it a test and just see if it happens to work. If not, we'll come back and look at some of these other vias that look like they could be corroded. This one definitely looked the worst though, so hopefully that's all there was to it. Gotta make sure and clean all this corrosion off. It's crazy that someone did all that work to this thing and then the case itself was just all corroded like that. Here we go. Good so far. Okay, now let's see if we get, hey, there we go. We get a character instead of just a square. That's good. Let's see if we get the yeah, there we go. Okay, so this Pokemon Yellow is good to go. Let's try out the Pokemon Silver and see what's wrong with that one. We've got just this one, the Pokemon Red, and then we can check out the Pokemon Crystals. And, oh, we got a messed up Nintendo logo here. We've seen plenty of those. Let's open this one up and see if we can figure out what's causing it. We've got a capacitor, something plugged in there. Now, I'm a rookie at this. I've only fixed maybe 1 or 2 Game Boy games in, I don't know, as long as I can remember. So I'm definitely not an expert here. I'm not sure what that's for though. Okay, no obvious signs of liquid damage. The back of this board is very dirty though. So we'll have to clean that up for sure. Once again, let's get under the microscope and have a closer look. And this one also has had all of these joints resoldered, but let's take a look at the back and check all of these. Yeah, I'm already seeing little bits of corrosion, not very much here. Let's look at the rest. Maybe some down there. I don't think that's too big of a deal though. And we're getting a little more corrosion up here. Oh yeah. So these two look like they could definitely be a problem. And then we got similar thing on all of these ones. So we need to get these cleaned up, repaired, then we can put it in and test it. Since we've already seen me do these numerous times, I'm going to do this part off camera, and then we'll give it a test when I'm done. Okay, the Nintendo logo looks good, and it's starting up so far. Okay, here we go. And there we go. So Pokemon Silver is fixed. Let's move on and see if we can fix Pokemon Red version. Pokemon Red goes for $50 used on eBay, so this will be another good one. If we can fix it, be another easy 50 bucks. Okay, and another one where someone has replaced the battery. It looks like I can see some soldering down there, so this one's another one that someone tried to fix. Let's see what they did wrong. And just looking at this, it looks like at some point there was some liquid damage on this. So we have to go through and check each of these joints and make sure that these are all, each of these traces is in good condition. It also needs quite a bit more cleaning. So I'm going through and checking right kind of where you see the green solder mask ends. because that's a common place, like right here, that's a common place where the trace could be broken. I do just keep seeing more and more liquid damage on this. Look at this. So all of this part where the solder mask is bubbling up, that's because liquid got under there. And as you can see, it's just all corroding now. So I think I found the main issue with this one. It looks to me like most of these traces are just totally worn away, starting from here all the way down to here. So to test that, I'm going to do some resistance testing. I have my multimeter set to resistance mode. So if you hear a beep, that means that there is continuity, meaning there's a connection. If you do not hear a beep, there is not a connection. So we're gonna start right here and see if we have a connection from this point up here to this point down here. There's a beep there. So that means there's a connection from here all the way down to the pad. And that's what we want. I'm gonna skip this one because I don't have a trace up there. So if we go right to here, there is no connection. If we go from there, there is. So there's a break right here. Let's try here. There's a connection there. There is no connection here and no connection there. No. That one's connected. That one is not. So as you can see, the majority of these, there is no connection. Now these are all fixable. I can take a trace wire and connect it from here down to here, and that would fix that specific trace. The problem is that I see a lot of this kind of thing, which means there was corrosion all the way up here, which means there's gonna be some more corroded copper right in here. There's likely corrosion up under this chip. There's likely corrosion up under this chip, because you can see right here, there's more solder mask that is lifted away from this blue corrosion right here. So the problem that I have with this type of repair is, in my opinion, it's just not worth it, because I could go through and do all of this work, fix the majority of these traces, and then there's still other issues up probably under this chip and probably under this chip. And then the other problem is that I wouldn't want to sell this for more than probably just parts, because while I might fix it and get it working, it also just might not work very long. So I'm going to call this game card not fixable, and let's move on to the Pokemon crystals. So here we have the first Pokemon crystal, starting up fine so far. Okay, it's giving me a check the clock thing. Makes me wonder if maybe the battery is not good in this. I'm going to just open this up, check out the battery. 0.4 volts. Okay, well, this definitely needs to be replaced. So this good replacement battery here is 3.3 volts. That's just crazy that it's a replacement battery and it's down to 0.4 volts. All right, let's get it replaced. Hopefully that'll fix it. Now this one's got a lot of solder here, not quite as much here, but I want to remove some of this just because it's not necessarily, I mean, frankly, it just looks ugly too. So I'm going to remove some of that using some solder wick, and then we will go through and install the new battery on there, and then we'll test it again and see what happens. That's better. Now we can reinstall this back into the case and then give it a test. Okay, and now it won't even get past the booting screen here. All right, so let's get it taken back apart and see if we can figure out what's going on with it now. And here we have what I think might be the problem. Just another corroded via. Just gonna clean this up a little bit, see if we can see how badly it's damaged, and also whether this one's damaged too. I think this one's okay. Definitely some damage there. We might just have to fix both of these since we're down here. So this is that same one on the other side, and it's even corroded right on the other side. So I'm just gonna bring a wire from here down through the hole and then connect it to this via. And we've got another trace right here that needs to be fixed. So I'm gonna get that one fixed up. I don't think there's any others on here that need to be fixed. So hopefully, if we're lucky, this will be our last one, and then it'll work when we're done. Okay, that's nice and solid. Hopefully that's the last repair we need to make on this game. Let's get it put back together and give it a test. Oh, good so far. Okay, so let's set this up and save it and then see if it remembers what we set up. So let's turn it off, take the game out, reinstall it, and see what happens. Okay, now we've got to continue. It remembers the day and time that I set. So this Pokemon Crystal is all fixed up. We've got one more to go. Let's see if we can fix the next one. Let's see. Okay, we got a scrambled Nintendo logo. Okay, and what do we have here but another corroded via. So this is going to be another one. I'm not going to show this whole thing. This is exactly the same one that was giving us problems with the last one. So I'm just going to fix this one and then cut to testing. So I've got that via fixed, and I was just going to move on to testing, but I can't not address this. This battery that someone installed, they installed it backwards, so then they had to bend the leads coming off of it in order to fit where it should. This battery should go on here like that, and this one was installed like this, so they had to bend these all down. So I'm going to remove this battery and let's get this thing fixed up how it should be, and then we'll do the testing. Okay, let's see what happens. Oh, we got the Nintendo logo, looks good, and it's going to the game. Okay, so here we go. So the second Pokemon Crystal Game Boy game is totally working. Those were the two that I really wanted to get working out of this whole lot, and we were able to do that. Both of those are worth about $110 each, so we can make $220 just from those two games. In this video, you saw me doing a lot of soldering, using things like solder wick and soldering irons. All of that is available right on ifixit.com/TronicsFix, along with most of the tools you saw today, and also repair guides if you're trying to fix stuff yourself. Go to ifixit.com/TronicsFix if you want to check it out. If you like this type of video, you'll probably like the video where I tried to fix a bunch of broken handheld game consoles. I'll put that video up on your screen now if you want to come hang out with me over there and see how many of those I could fix. Thank you so much for watching today, and I hope you have a good one.